Today we interviewed Claudia Moreno and Joel Ruiz. Claudia's partner is Jonathan Diaz, whose end of watch is Saturday, November 2nd, 2019. Joel's partner is Ricardo Lizarraga, whose end of watch was Friday, February 20th, 2004. Both of them have been on our podcast before, and they recently crossed paths at one of our events. That sparked a conversation between them where they were able to help each other out emotionally and, because they both went through the same things. So in conversation with both of them since that time, I realized how important that conversation was and how important it is for other people to hear it. I hope you enjoy the podcast.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. I can't even be a voyeur and record you guys without you guys knowing it. It's good to see your faces. I wish we were all in the same room. There's always this, that intimacy is real nice when we talk about really, deep sentimental things. Anyway, so kind of wanted to start this off with Joe, your partner passed away in 2004.
Yes.
Right? And Claudia, your partner passed away in 2019.
Yes.
That's a 15-year gap there, but somehow we've all came together in 2021. And I think the first time you guys met, I'm learning as I go when I do these events. And I got to make sure I know my boundaries, my limits. But I put Claudia in a position where, she got emotional in front of people, and I don't think she wanted to do that. But that sparked off a conversation, I think, is what happened. Right, Claudia?
Yes, it did.
And I think that was very powerful. I don't know if you want to just pick it up from there.
So I think sometimes things happen, and initially our feelings kind of take over at the time. And so it did happen where you had asked me to get up there, and I didn't want to. I don't like to get emotional in front of people, especially strangers. That's something that obviously I don't think anybody really likes to or wants to do, but it happened. And I realized soon after that everything happens for a reason. So it was a good thing. And that's why I try to keep reminding you that, not to feel bad, because good things happened. And it wasn't just you, it was actually another friend of mine who was in the military. He retired, and so I was telling him what had happened, and he, as I was explaining to him, I did tell him, I said, hey, you know what, I kind of got a little bit upset, and he cut me off, right? He didn't even let me finish. He cut me off, and he said, wait. And he said, first off, that was a good thing, because had you not went through that, then you wouldn't have met Joel, and you wouldn't have had that person come up to you and share their experience with you to where you can feel and be where you're at now. So I told him, I said, no, I got over it. It took me a couple hours, but I got over it. So no, it was a good thing. It was a good thing.
Yeah, sorry about that again.
Don't be sorry. It's a good thing.
So, Joel, as she was, when I had her up there, when she started crying, did you say, "Damn, Chris, you're an asshole"? What were you thinking?
So actually, you could see the pain, in her face, and that she was hurting, and she did a quick dash to the door, and it's I've been in those shoes, and it's a tough place to be in. You feel like you're alone. So I don't know if you've seen that work, Chris. We have those posters. It's a little poster where it says hey, see something, say something. And it's a couple with his arm around another one.
Right.
And they're kind of walking hey, just somebody might need your help.
Yeah.
I always remember that little flyer that we have posted around the different stations. And so I went out to the parking lot and I could see she was upset. And just kind of gave her a little quick rundown of my situation and just let her know, hey, you know what, I know how you're feeling because I've been in that spot too, and you're not alone. I'm here if you need to talk to me. And I gave my number and just started from there. Just if you see somebody hurting, they might just need a person to talk to, or a hug, or something.
Right.
I did see if I could.
So I think one thing that's really important is that, and I actually learned this early on in my career. I had worked for Fresno PD as a chaplain for about 8 years. And one of the great things about the senior chaplain, and I just had learned this from just observing him and watching him, was that he himself was in law enforcement, and he did a lot of the special units. He did K9. I think he did SWAT. So, in my opinion and the way I looked up to him, I was like, wow, this guy was a bad mofo. But when I met him, he was already a chaplain. But I learned that a lot of the guys and a lot of the officers trusted him and talked to him because they knew at some point he was one of them. So he ended up getting medically retired, unfortunately. He was in a vehicle collision, and the vehicle that hit him, the driver that hit him was a drunk driver, unfortunately. So it kind of went from there, and he became the senior chaplain. But again, going back to why people were so comfortable with him and were able to relate with him was because he himself was one of them. And I think, people had tried to comfort me. I have my family and my friends, but it's different when it's someone else that's in law enforcement that tells you it's going to be okay. It's a different type of comfort. You're more at ease, and it kind of sucks. You think, okay, I trust this person more. They probably said the same thing that my aunt may have told me, but it just comes out differently when it's someone that you work with or is in the same field as you.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main things I spoke to, Joe has done Joe, this is your third podcast with us.
Correct.
And, we haven't, in January, we're going to do the big push of getting this out there really to the masses. And you're the one you did, the first one you did with me was, I think that one has like the most hits out of all the podcasts I've done. And I don't have a forum there for people to really talk, but I get a bunch of messages on there about it, or I get a bunch of text messages or private messages. And I think I've shared some with you where people are just like, thank you for that. I got emotional, but I needed it. I think the biggest void is between coppers is people like me who've never gone through it. And then when we meet people like you guys who have gone through the worst, we don't know how to approach you, or we should say anything at all, or just kind of just don't make eye contact, So I think right here talking about it hopefully helps, hopefully puts this platform out there for people who don't know what to do, or people who want to be involved to be involved. And you guys kind of sharing your story of how you guys spoke and how you guys help each other out. For me, that was huge because Claudia, when you ran to the door, I didn't notice that. I mean, I was too busy trying to.
I snuck out.
The music was on. I was, I know I'm not being purposefully shallow or anything, but
No.
these little things that happen, So, anyway, I just want to appreciate you guys for being very open and vulnerable here, like on this platform. So, but let me ask you guys. You guys have both done a podcast with me before. After we recorded it, how did you guys feel? Like relief or not? And you guys are both obviously in two different times in your grieving, right? So I'm just wondering if it it helped, because I know getting feedback can help other people, right? So
Yeah, for me, it helped a lot. I think that's the most I had ever talked about it since it happened. And it was almost like a weight lifted off my chest. And getting things out that I hadn't said before, um, talking about how certain individuals helped me out. I get a call from them like, God, I never knew that.
yeah,
We went first driving around the block. Bob Team. He's like, I don't even remember it, but it's stuff that I remember that helped me. Just getting it all out there for me was a sense of like relief and just something off my chest that I could just kind of just lay it all out. And I think when we did the podcast, there wasn't anything that was off limits. You asked me a question, I answered. I shared stuff, so I think that for me it was a good thing to do it. And I think that first one probably the most special to me, I guess I would say, because we went into a lot of stuff.
yeah, we went into stuff even after the cameras went off.
Yeah.
So, which was insanely powerful for me, right? So, but yeah, I mean that's really good to hear. I'm always worried about that part of it, about the re-traumatization and things like that, But it's good to hear that. Well, I can't believe that. How long has it been? And it's the first time you've spoken that much about it.
Yeah.
What does that? I guess how can we, as either just a culture or a police department, make that better for ourselves, for officers who go through that? Because they're obviously, like I said before, I don't think it's anybody's fault. I think it's a weird place. People don't want to touch it, and he or she's okay, and now we don't know what to do. But now there's this void, So I mean, I don't know. How do you think we could make it better for officers? I mean, this year alone, it's over 400 officers who died in line of duty, right? And how do we make that unfortunate part of the culture, until we make it zero? How do we make that better? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think one of the things that isn't encouraged enough is to speak up about it, because my department, I almost felt bad just being around anybody, because I knew that they didn't know what to say. And the one person that did reach out, which was one of the higher ups in our companion officer program that we have at Fresno PD, he did reach out to me. He did ask me a couple of times through text, hey, how are you doing? And of course, I think it's natural and it's unfortunate that we do this a lot as officers, is we say we're fine and we don't need anything. So I did that each time, because I didn't want anybody worried about me, because I didn't want anybody to question my mental state, my mental ability and stability, and I didn't want anybody to question whether or not I'm fit for duty, because what is that common misconception is that if you're going to seek help, or if you're just not emotionally where you want to be, then it's automatic, okay, this person's not stable enough, they're crazy, or maybe they shouldn't be in this, which is a lot of the thoughts that I had running through my head initially. Even up until just a few months ago, I questioned whether or not I was strong enough to be a police officer, because of the fact that I was grieving so much, and because of the fact that I went to seek help. So I think it needs to be encouraged, especially by people who are getting the help, because it would surprise you. I was just at my, because I go twice a month to go see this therapist, and she's an awesome lady. And someone was there as I was leaving, and this is one of the officers that, obviously I'm not going to say who he is, but he's somebody that I've admired all my life. When I was a cadet, he was already working there, and I just always thought he was such a cool officer and a good officer. So to see him there, it made me feel good to know that he was there and he was seeking help for whatever it was that he was getting, but also that it was somebody that I admired and looked up to.
I mean, even you guys being.
So I just think that.
Sorry, it froze.
It's okay. I just
froze. So I thought you stopped. Sorry.
It just needs to be. It just needs to be put out there more, encouraged more.
So, I guess the responsibility lies on us. And what do we use? Do we use social media? Because we have been. I think everybody has. I think our culture has clung on to social media because there's nobody else really supporting us but us. So, a lot of officers say, "Hey, why do they post so many police things?" I think it's a great thing because now we have a little forum where we can at least support each other.
Yeah.
Maybe some people go a little too overboard with the selfies, but whatever. If they're happy, they're happy. But, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, I think something's wrong with you. Like, hey, let them be proud of what they're doing. And that's the other thing, too. There's so much trash talking also. But those things, I think, when something as heavy as a law enforcement death happens, I think everybody just shuts up and they just don't know what to say, what to do, and that there's still stigma there. But I think you're right, just talking about it. I guess that's up to us. If management is not going to do it, if the culture that follows us is still, heavy weight that slows us down, it's kind of just to people like us three, and being involved. And there's a lot of nonprofits out there that are doing great things. So yeah, and things like, I know, Claudia, you just ran how many miles for your partner?
28. 28.
Or a marathon.
Yeah. So I did that the first time that I did that. I saw the text message and I said, I was just started running again because I was trying to feel better. This is when I was in the office. I got pulled out of patrol and I was in the office. And I felt like shit because this is when we were having actively the riots and all the demonstrations, and headquarters at Fresno PD was barricaded for the safety of the building. And I was inside, and I'm working. I'm in property and evidence, and I'm seeing the emails and stuff of all the order backs, which is basically it's overtime. You're getting called back into work, and they want people to be on alert, and people are coming to pick up their equipment, their riot gear and stuff. And so I felt really crappy because I'm like, here I am in this nice comfy desk, which I hated, and my buddies are out there having to work extra hours. So I started to run again, and then I remember thinking, okay, this is the furthest I've ran in a long time. I can't remember how many miles it was. And I said, I wonder if I can run from Huron to Lemoore, or something like that. I said, I wonder if I can. And you said, like, don't think about it, just do it. And I said, okay, I will. So then I just kept building. Every week I would build it up and I'd run just a little bit further. So I did it the first year. I ran on his end of watch date. And I remember I talked to Blanca, which is Jonathan's mom. I talked to her first and asked her if she was okay with it. So she was perfectly okay with it. And now it's just, I've made it a thing. So I couldn't do it on the 2nd this year. And I talked to her about it and I said, hey, I'm not going to, because I wasn't in town. So I said, what day was it? I couldn't remember what day it was that we had laid him to rest. And she said, oh, it was on the 15th. So I said, okay, is it okay with you if I run on the 15th? And she was like, yes, of course. So I ran on the 15th. So that was the day that we laid him to rest. That was the day of the funeral and the day that we laid him to rest. So I did that. The last time that I did it, I had someone following me, and I had a couple people following me this year too, but the weather was a little bit different. So aside from training, I think the fact that it was a little bit colder and it was really foggy, the sun never came out. I think that helped me run faster. I couldn't stay warm enough long. Like I'd get warm, I'd get sweaty, and I'd start to get cold again. So then I'd change my shirt and then kind of go through that cycle. But while I'm doing this run, it's liberating for me because I'm not talking to anybody, and I have a chance to think about him. And I look at this, it's almost all just farm country, just so I have that moment to reflect and not only think about him, but think about why I'm still here and the fact that I am still here, and to remind myself not to feel sorry for myself. There's other people here, and their grief and pain is probably even more painful than mine, and I need to just make the best of it. So that's why I run. So my plan is to do this as long as I'm physically able to do it.
It's nice. And you've also been, I'm sure it's helped you to help Bluecoat Foundation with the patch design contest and all these little things. You just offered your help, and I appreciate that. Even Joe, you just pretty much, you're telling me anything you need, let me know. Yeah, I'll get a tattoo. Yeah, I'll do a podcast. So like, you never say no, and that's been awesome help.
Stuff like that from first tattoo I got, and I still keep in contact with Victor.
Yeah.
When you did the last one, with Claudia got it too. I think you had asked me to reach out to him. I didn't even get to finish the sentence. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm there." So there's a lot of people that, like you said, still support us.
Yeah.
And his talent, his artwork, his tattoos. That's something that goes back to us.
Yeah.
That's something I look at almost every day in the mirror. I just think about, we still have people who are rooting for this. They want us.
Yeah, I think so too, for sure. Victor and Charo, I can't say his name. I can't roll my R's too well. But they've actually, there's a bunch of cool stuff coming up next year. They both offered to do monthly tattoos for fallen officers, which is amazing. I'm still trying to organize how I'm gonna get that out there. But that's amazing. Like, it's been a lot of support there. I'm curious about Joel, looking back on the last, how many years has it been? 17? How have I know we touched on this before, but just kind of looking at the different stages of your life since then, how have your coping mechanisms changed? And if you could do it again, how would you, what kind of coping mechanisms would you maybe recommend for other people going through the same thing?
So back then, it was sign home, go to BSS, come back to work, stay inside for a little bit, and I remember the captain at Newton told me, like, "Hey, anywhere you want to go, you want to go to the building, I chose to stay there at Newton just because of the family atmosphere it had. Those guys there were behind me 100% day one. There wasn't really too many things to do. I actually started drinking a lot. That was one of my coping mechanisms.
You said drinking a lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably wasn't the best because
And we also didn't have all the social media out there and stuff like that, right? It was just like it seemed like it must have been such a lonely world more than it is already, right?
And with the drinking, I probably pissed a lot of people off. I probably hurt a lot of people. And stuff. It wasn't a coping mechanism to use.
Yeah.
Now that 17 years later, 16 years later, you have this forum where you can go and talk about your feelings and reach out to somebody who just went through it, Claudia, and let them know, like, hey, you really can honestly say, how you feel, because I was there.
Yeah.
I got into eating a lot.
You said you broke up a little bit. You said you were eating a lot. You said you broke up a little bit.
Booze and food. Like ballooned up in weight, and I had one of my partners come here like, hey, knock this shit off.
Yeah.
Get back to where you were. Control Lizarraga wanted to do. So I kind of felt that I owed it to Lizarraga to keep pushing forward.
Is it after that? After you were spoken to, was there after? I'm assuming there was a turning point. Is there something else you clung on to as a coping mechanism at that point when you started kind of?
Not that I can really say something that I hung on to, because there was nobody really to talk to. It was BSS or a psychologist, and psychiatrist, one of those.
Yeah.
Those are that was the only place we could go to talk to somebody, and that actually really did help a lot. I was talking to somebody who knew kind of the same thing, like they know how my brain works and how I was feeling and why I was feeling that way. But besides that, it was my friends. But still, that same thing was like, now Claudia's like, hey, how you doing? I'm okay.
Yeah.
So, you don't want that like stigmatism. Or
right.
Get that perceived like always weak.
Yeah.
As far as like coping mechanisms, I think I started getting into running, like Claudia did.
Did you what?
Running, got into running. Like
okay.
Yeah. That was, I think that would probably be one of my coping mechanisms also, is to put my headphones on and just take off. And, nobody to bother me, nobody to ask me questions, I'm not worried about anything else, just enjoying the sights as a room. So I think that was probably one of my coping mechanisms too.
That seems to be a common one for a lot of coppers, just running.
It's like you're by yourself. There's nobody else to. I don't want to say bother you. There's nobody else there. It's just you and your thoughts, and wherever you want to take yourself, is where you go.
Yeah. You still running a lot these days?
Not as fast and not as far, but I try. I went for a run yesterday. I'm like, oh, my knees hurt.
Yeah, I had to slow down my running, my knees and my back. So I found myself. So I guess the public gym opened recently. I finally started going back, and I'm over on the elliptical, and I look around. And there's like old people everywhere there. I'm like, all right, this is not where the youngsters are. All right, I could accept that part of it, but I got my bike out of the storage, my road bike, and have good intentions. But right now, I'm hanging some clothes on it.
It's not even until you brought this up now where I see that a healthy body, healthy mind makes you feel better. So I guess looking back now, that was one of the reasons.
Yeah.
So just taking care of yourself instead of just beating yourself mentally, physically.
Yeah.
Get yourself back.
And I think it's so important to. I don't think we know we're in that state until later in life. And hopefully later in life, when you're looking back, you're in a better place, right? So I think that support from each other is important, even though, but this is what I gather so far, is that even though you feel uncomfortable, you should reach out to these officers who are going through either this similar thing or something else in their life. As uncomfortable as it feels, I think it's the responsibility for individuals as coppers is to put yourself in that uncomfortable position. We go, we'll go into places with our rifles and guns out, like we're badasses, but we see a cop who's hurting and we don't want to touch it. You know what I mean? So we just kind of transfer that courage over. I think that could do a lot. So, like you said, you didn't know that was a coping mechanism, and now you're thinking about it, and that makes total sense. So, anyway, I'm just blabbering.
Yeah.
So,
isolation, I think, is horrible. It's because I think when we don't reach out to each other and we just kind of, and it's awkward, just at any time, and somebody just starts crying in front of you, you're just like, oh, I don't know what to do. Yeah. But I think that was a reaction for people not saying anything to me, is that I felt like this weirdo, and so I just isolated myself even more, which I realized later wasn't healthy for me. So it is good. You should reach out to people, and if you ask them how they're doing, I mean, really mean it. Don't we get so caught up in the hi bye and just kind of passing each other by, and hey, what's up, how are you doing, how are you feeling? I mean, you're gonna ask that, really mean it, and be prepared for what if that person's not having a good day, or needs help, and be open about, if you are seeking help, be open about letting other people, encouraging other people, and letting them know, because I honestly don't think this is something that we should be embarrassed about. But unfortunately, a lot of us are. Like I said, even up until pretty recently, I was kind of sort of feeling that way. So I needed that reassurance from friends and people that were going to see this therapist, that it's okay and it's not. And like you said, you don't have an active like room of where people can comment on that, the video that you had with Joel. But watching that, even though you tend to also block things out. You don't want to, when you've gone through so much, you don't go seeking to look at other people's pain either. But for whatever reason, I actually watched it on one of my plane rides, and I got to watch the whole interview, and it was, like I said, I sent you a message. It was very helpful. So that's why I think it's important to put that stuff out there, because it not only it lifted a weight off my shoulders, I felt like I was looking at myself, as far as, you go through this process of what you're thinking, not only about yourself, about your career, you question your career, you question yourself. And I had never heard anybody else voice the things that I had gone through. So it was pretty life-changing after that, when I watched that video. I actually went and talked to my therapist about it, and she didn't realize that I had been feeling, even though I'm talking to her about all this stuff, she didn't realize that I had been questioning my abilities as an officer that entire time. She thought that she had pretty much made it clear. But hearing that, she actually thought that this was just one of those great things, and it is necessary to have that support amongst each other, because it really was. Had I not watched that, those were things that were still sitting in the back of my mind about myself and my career, and what I felt about my grief.
And it's actually, you just kind of openly talking about it, that takes a lot of courage. Both of you are very open about it, and that's like a scary thing to do, just to open yourself up to people. And I mean, yeah, I don't think I could do it, right? So thank you guys for that. Um, for myself, I think I kind of want to talk about your partners a little bit, like a couple good memories and stuff. But let me intro it by, I always think, okay, what if this were to happen to me? What I want my friends and my coworkers to go through all this, and so what can I do to empower myself to honor, feel like, at least personally, feel like I'm honoring fallen officers. And I love the game of tactics in the field. I've never left patrol, and it's a weird culture where if you're too tactical, you're like Tackleberry, you get made fun of. But if you're not tactical enough, you're like a quote unquote slap, or So there's this weird balance that our culture has. So I'm always thinking tactics. I think that game of tactics is an exciting game. I love it. Maybe I think about it too much, or it bleeds into my personal life. However, I don't talk about it as much just because of that weird culture. But usually when I think about it, when I feel powerless, when I read all 400 plus officers, 431 I think that died this year. Like, I read every single one. So I got to make sure I maintain my own mental health. But sometimes when you feel kind of powerless, and especially we see some of the politics that are happening, and I feel even more powerless, I tend to say, hey, you know what? The best way I think I could honor these coppers is to really fasten up all those tactics, make them tight, make sure I get home, make sure my partner gets home, and that's the best way to honor those who have passed away. And that's just something I do personally, and I got to this point because of people like you guys who have helped me with the nonprofit, talking about it and stuff like that. So anyway, I say all that to say I'd love to hear a story or two, about your partners, something positive, obviously, for us to remember him by, and also how you continue to honor that person, whether it's something small just to yourself, or whatever it is. Yeah, I think if you guys are comfortable with that. So, Joe.
So, trying to think about
I didn't prep you guys for this. Sorry.
some. Those are a lot of stories that I can share. Let's see. Just the way that he was just easygoing. He was probably one of the strongest guys I've ever met. He was on the football team, but he was, they call him like the general giant, and that's what he was. And he enjoyed various types of music, and there's a school in the division that was named after him. It's Lizarraga Elementary School, and every year they have a big assembly. And the last one that I went to, which was really cool, they started a music program just recently at the school. So I think it's about maybe 4 kids, one playing drums, one playing guitar, another bass guitar, and they played a couple rock and roll songs. So I think these are little kids in elementary school, 17 years later, still honoring him, and we both enjoy music. So that's one thing that I remember. Like, I'll listen to a song that we both like, or we both heard, or talked about. So music is a good memory of him that I like to remember. And then for me, just little signs everywhere. And I just believe in that myself. Little things that happen, like seeing somebody or seeing a certain thing, will remind me of him. It's like, there's a lot of sending a sign. So that's what I like to remember.
Like, it's interesting. I always jokingly say when we're on patrol, where there's that call that comes out that's just waiting and nobody wants to take it. and it's like, you know what? Let's just good karma. Let's take it. Let's hope that the radio call gods take care of us. And I swear, 9 out of 10 times, we'll take this horrible sounding call, and it'll be like, it'll turn out to be a big nothing, and then we're totally fine. We don't have that 10-hour overtime on an ugly call. But I think from now on, like if you're okay with it, I'll give a nod to your partner as well. He's probably up there with the radio call gods. You know what I mean?
So kind of going back to that, what you just said. So that day, we were in Newton, it was kind of drizzly, and call came out southwest. So kind of the same thing. We just maybe see if we get canceled off it, and let's just go. So it kind of like, hey, well, what are we gonna do? We got all day to work. Let's go handle it.
Right.
So it's kind of it's like 9 times out of 10, it's okay. How was that 10th one?
Yeah.
But that's our job. Well, let's just go handle it. Let's go handle it like we did all the other calls.
Yeah.
So right now, I different division. I listen to the radio calls come out, and I was just sometimes a little. So we even had this is not accurate. Last month, we have not had an officer come to a meeting, and almost at the station, and some young teenager comes out, takes a pop shot at him from behind, hits him. Actually, he gets shot, but he has a good. It's not even a graze with his action.
This is an officer coming into work, right?
It's work, yeah.
Got it.
And I think I had said the first podcast. This is what I was looking at today.
Yeah.
That officer was around there. And just things like that, right? He's still taking care of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. For sure. Claudia, I don't know if you wanted to share a memory or not. You don't have to. Or you can say how you honor it, which you're doing a lot right now actively, and that's cool too, so.
So Jonathan he's 10 years younger than me. So his mom and I were just talking about this not too long ago, how, you get to know people a certain way. It's funny because I remember discussing him, and I threw out the word like naive and innocent, and some of the girls are like, yeah, right, he's not innocent, or something like that. But to me, because I was looking at it from a law enforcement patrol point of view, just his reactions to certain things, he was very naive and new, and that's why I was saying he's innocent,
Like
the little jokes, that we would have. On the day that we had to transport him back to Hanford, because after he passed, he was transferred to a funeral home here in Fresno, which is about 45 minutes away from Lemoore. So we were driving. I'm sorry, this was the day we were driving to the funeral home, because there was a procession to the funeral home and then another one back. I can't remember how long he was in Fresno. He was here for a good minute because I was with him almost every day. But on the way over there, I remember it was very rushed because I can't remember who I got in contact with from Lemoore PD, but we started texting each other back and forth, and he tells me when they're going to be driving. And so I had to kind of play catch up, you know. And in the meantime, we had already started a messaging group from all of the officers and the dispatchers that worked at Huron PD at the time that the Jonathan was there. So we had this little group message thing, and we just kind of kept each other up to date on whatever was going on. So I'm telling them, and I knew too, when you work at a smaller department, it's not as easy to get time off to go and do things like this. So it was sort of like I was telling them, like, hey, I got you. Look, we're all here together. You guys are there in spirit, but I'm going for you too. So I'm also messaging them and letting them know when I'm in the vehicle and stuff. So very emotional. And so you start kind of going through all these thoughts. And one of them I had to share with, I did a video call because I'm, you know, that's, and so I was thinking back to Nellie. Nellie's one of the officers, one of the officers at Huron PD. And Nellie is very cute, short, little petite girl, and she loved to eat. And she was one of those with like her stomach was made of steel. Like she would eat anything, and it'd be like an all day thing. And you're like, where's all this food going? She would eat anything. And Huron is like out in the middle of nowhere in the country. And to me, it was just really odd because it's mostly Hispanic, Mexican, people from Honduras, El Salvador. And so here we have this Chinese food restaurant. Like, where did this Chinese food restaurant come from? I don't know. I just didn't feel comfortable eating there. But she would eat there all the time, and she'd get these big old, you know, to-go boxes of food, and she'd be just sopping it up. So one day, the station was full. Everybody was kind of coming in and out. And some of the girls were eating at this table, and and Jonathan calls me over and he says, "Hey, Moreno, come here." So I don't know what I was doing, but I was busy, and I'm kind of looking at him like, what, you know? So he calls me over here. He's like, "Come here," and I just thought it was the cutest thing because he's like whispering. He didn't want to say it loud. He was whispering. He's telling me to come here. I'm like, okay, so I follow him in the report writing room. And I was like, what? So we're really close to each other because I can't hear him, and he's like whispering really like low. And he says to me, he goes, "Nellie was eating right now, and there was a pelo in her food," which is a hair, right? Yeah. There was a pelo in her food, and she picked it up with the fork and she ate it. Oh. And I said, "What?" And then I was like, "Why didn't you tell her?" He goes, "I thought she saw it, but then it was too late." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, she looked right at it." And you know, when you're looking at somebody and you see them looking in a certain direction, you think they saw something and they really didn't. And then I was like, "And you didn't say anything?" And he was like, "No, it was too late." I was like, "Jonathan." And then I was like, "Okay, just don't even tell her now. It's too late." To me, in my mind, I was like, "Don't tell her. It's gross. It's going to ruin her day, right? What's the worst that can happen?" So that was one of our secrets that we kept to ourselves, and we never told anybody.
You know I'm posting this today, right?
So they know. So on my way in the procession, I just started laughing. Mind you, because you're going through this emotional roller coaster. So, 5 minutes I'm crying nonstop, and then all of a sudden this memory just hits me, and I just start busting up laughing like hysterically. Because it was like I could still hear his voice. So I immediately went to the messenger group and I recorded, and I told them the story, and I said, "Hey, I'm really about to tell you guys something." It's like you can see a messenger when someone sees your message, right? So you see all the little balls dropping to the recording. And Nellie's first reaction was like, "That, whatever." She called it. I was laughing so hard, and I just was thinking how it was like we were mischievous, but it wasn't anything ever really bad. But I loved that he confided in me with that, and that was like one of our little secrets. So I had to let it out. I had to let it out because I figured even if he was there, I would probably let it out anyway. It was just it hit me, it triggered me. But that's how he was. He was just a really sweet guy, and we would rag on each other, and like we would never get upset. He never. I can't say I ever saw him upset a day in our lives. Like when we worked together, the only time was we had an incident. That was another one. I won't share that of something that had happened, and we had a bad day. Something that had happened was a oh shit moment, and I didn't realize until much later. I was visiting Blanca, and we were sitting there talking about it, and she said, mind you, I had never told anybody. I only told her. And to this day, I will only tell her. And she says, you know what? I remember that day because he came home and he told me about it. And I said, really? She said, yeah, it was bothering him, and he told me what had happened. So that right there it brought us closer together, and it also told me like he was listening to what I was telling him because it was something that he did and I corrected him on it. But he was a really good guy, and I just that's one of the things that I'm battling with it now is that I feel like I took my friendship for granted because we always assume that person's going to be there. So I think that's one of my biggest battles right now. But I try to just remember what a good person he was and how he took care of his mom, very admirable, took care of his brothers, took care of his kids. The first thing he wanted to do was, get a house and get his mom out of the hood. And that's exactly what he did. He didn't hesitate. He always took care of his mom. He wanted her to have nice things, and that was his priority. So I love that about him. He's a good person. I think we can all learn from that.
Thanks for sharing that. I think everybody, at least a few times in their lives, find hairs in their food, but from this point on, whenever that happens in my life, I will remember Jonathan Diaz. So
those are the signs.
Yeah, exactly.
To say something this time, say something now.
So you guys have both been on the podcast more than once. It's always been a different dynamic, which has been really, really cool. From the first podcast with Joel, and then the one you did with Rich Medina and Steph Felicia, that was just really, really interesting, powerful one. A lot of information there for people. It was great. And then even this one here with the dynamics of how you guys met through Chris J's shallowness of putting Claudia on the spot. But then you guys kind of here, talking about such an important thing in your lives, such an important thing that happens in our world, in our culture. And I think you guys coming together here. Thank you, and I think it's going to help people in tremendous ways. I know it will. So I just wanted to say thank you before I close out. And if you guys wanted to, yeah, please.
So the way that you bring people together, it's kind of interesting. So I'll share the story if you don't mind, Claudia.
No, go ahead. I was waiting on you.
So I met Claudia that day from the Inked in Honor, and then became Facebook friends. So one of her stories pops up, and it has I think it was remember something in regards to I'll always remember you 1812. So I asked her, I'm like, what's the significance to 1812? And she said that was Jonathan's badge number, and that's what she got tattooed on her back.
Yeah.
She had that tattoo on her back. And I was like, such a small world, because I have 1812 tattooed on my arm. This is it's a Marine Corps tattoo that I got probably maybe 25 years ago. Oh. And so I sent her that picture of this. I was like, I have 1812 tattooed on me also. So it was like, no way. There was a reason for us to to meet, come together, and just another one of those signs, 1812, four numbers. And, going back to you, if it wasn't for what you're doing for all of us, we never would have met, been able to help each other out. So I thank you for everything you do, keeping everybody spirit alive and bringing people like us together. And I told Claudia, part of our shitty group, shitty club, but we're all here for each other. So I want to share that with you because, little did you know we bring two people together.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
We all share it with them.
Awesome.
Every day that we do it.
Cool.
So I told Blanca about that almost immediately. I was gonna wait until I saw her, but I couldn't wait to tell her because she's very spiritual, and I was telling Bor in God conversation was that everything happens for a reason, and I believe, in my belief is that God puts people in your path for a reason. And I had already met you, and I already thought that you were doing such great things at least 2 years prior to Jonathan's death. So for me to come across you, I don't think it was an accident. And then to come across Joel, it wasn't an accident either. And so when he sent me that, it blew me away. And so I had to tell Blanca about it. And she wholeheartedly believes that again, it's for a reason. And so it took her breath away to know that this person who had went through the same pain as I am going through, had this number, like, how is it that the same sequence of numbers is going to be on two different people who have never met each other before, or lived, hours and hours away from each other, and can come together and have this significant bond, because it means a lot. Had you not done this, had you not made me stand up and talk in front of everybody, that would have never happened. So I had to share that because, like I said, I was battling a lot of things even up until recently. And it wasn't until I got to talk to Joel or even saw the interview that I was able to understand my feelings and what I was going through a lot more. A lot of people don't know, and I think I did share with you, was that the last month and a half that I was on patrol, because I didn't want to impose my feelings and what I was going through with my buddies, I don't doubt, especially there's a couple of them that I have a connection with. I know I love them and they love me back. They didn't know what I was going through. And so I worked the midnight shift, so 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. So the last 45 minutes of my shift, I would go back, back in the spot somewhere off away from our station. And I would just cry it out and then try to pull it together before I went back to the station so that we could log off. And I did that nightly up until the end of the year. So I was very alone during that time. And I realize now that, because of the fact that I was so afraid to speak up and talk about it, that I kind of created that loneliness for myself by not reaching out more and asking for help. Or when the companion officer reached out to me and asked me if I was okay, and I just told him that I was, and I sort of created that loneliness for myself, that isolation for myself. So this experience has been very eye-opening for me and very helpful. And we talked about it a couple of times that you're doing amazing things. You have a great heart, and I appreciate what you're doing. And I know you put yourself in a position, I think I told you that too, where you have to hear this stuff, and it sucks, but you're doing it. So it's beyond appreciated. I don't know if I could ever really thank you for what you've done.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.